I love watching commentary videos. They're my favorite things to listen to, especially in the background. However, a lot of commentary videos nowadays are getting so negative, and honestly, it's kind of annoying. When it comes to TikTok, which a lot of these commentary videos are about, they tend to really emphasize on the negative aspects and just keep going, kind of just bashing things that are going on in TikTok. I've been watching a lot of colourtok and booktok videos. Most of them have been saying the same thing. They really emphasize on the idea of overconsumption and how terrible it is. The way that they say it is a little bit rude, in my opinion, a little bit judgy, because they keep saying how disgusting it is that people keep buying all of these things, which I definitely agree with. I acknowledge that overconsumption is not a good thing. TikTok has definitely made it worse, but I feel like there's a difference between the overconsumption of a hobby and the overconsumption of just something else. For example, I don't like watching restock videos. Restock videos creep me out because when it comes to restock videos, I'm kind of like, why would you buy a bunch of these random things? I personally think that they restock it and then they take it out and then film another video where they restock it. I hope that they aren't buying new products every single time that they're doing a restock video, because I don't like wasting stuff. And the fact that you have a bunch of like cotton pads and just like one of those toothpicks, you don't even know if people are using it, that I don't really agree with. But when it comes to things like stationery, books, overconsumption does happen. People definitely buy too much of something even when they're beginning to get into that hobby, but there are also people who do slowly collect things. And I feel like when it comes to calling out overconsumption, people don't look at the different spectrums of, I guess, overconsumption. They see that, oh, this person, they have a lot of books on their bookshelves, instantly overconsumption, they're terrible. I wanted to talk about colourtok first because a lot of people seem to be talking about colourtok, and I'll be honest, I'm not really on colourtok or booktok that much. I mainly just see the fun colouring in ASMR videos, which are so satisfying to watch. So I don't really see the whole overconsumption side of it, of people hauling markers or books. However, because I've watched other commentary videos on them, I've seen those specific TikToks. I think that those TikToks show one side of the community, and because of TikToks like that, people just tend to judge the whole community. If it is your hobby, obviously you will have a bunch of coloring books, a bunch of markers, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you bought these whole things straight away. It could just mean that you've collected it over time. And if people are showing their collection, you don't really know if they hoard it all at once or if they bought everything for this one video to show on TikTok. And it's crazy to me as well that people are actually gatekeeping Ohuhu markers. Artists are gatekeeping Ohuhu markers, which I will get into later. I've seen videos where people are like, oh my god, you're spending $300+ on these markers, and most of these markers I would say probably have 300, 200 in them. And yes, they are expensive markers, but the reason why they are so expensive is because they are good quality markers, and that's why they cost so much. You cannot expect cheap markers to be good markers. So there's a reason why these markers are obviously priced very highly, and I wanted to give an example of the whole situation. My sister has been starting her own coloring book collection, and the first time she bought markers, obviously she didn't jump straight away to Ohuhu markers, which I kind of was like, you probably should, because I'm kind of a stationery girl. I love stationery. But she bought these Amazon markers that were cheap. They were $40, and they were terrible. They were so streaky. They lacked pigment. They couldn't blend. They were so ugly that when I used them in my coloring book, I was like, nope, I'm gonna stop. I'm not gonna even try to use these markers. And then I moved on to my own coloring pencils, which were the Faber-Castell coloring pencils, the watercolor coloring pencils. And they weren't that great either, because again, they are cheaper pencils compared to, I guess, art grade pencils, which those ones are softer, they blend better, they're more pigmented. After that, my sister finally decided to buy the Ohuhu markers as a gift to herself. The first collection that she bought was actually the one with the chunky nib, so she bought the round one, which I kind of thought was hilarious, but it ended up working out fine. And then she bought the Honolulu one, and yeah, They're expensive, but they come in a wide range of colors, and you can clearly see the difference between a cheap marker and an expensive marker. In the end, if someone decides to buy these markers, you know, they're buying it with their own money, so why should we really judge what they buy or not? No matter how much you criticize someone for overconsumption, I don't really think that makes them stop overconsuming. They just have to realize themselves that, oh, I should probably not be spending my money on these things anymore. As I mentioned before, there are artists literally gatekeeping 𝐬𝐻𝐬 markers. I wouldn't bash someone because they bought 𝐬𝐻𝐬 markers. Again, it's their own money. What am I supposed to say? You shouldn't use these 𝐬𝐻𝐬 markers that you've already bought. A lot of artists are saying that, oh, these markers are not meant for the paper in the coloring books, which that's fair, but a lot of them also seem to feel superior over these fake coloring artists, and they say, oh, these 𝐬𝐻𝐬 markers should only be used for actual artists. In my opinion, I think people who color in coloring books are artists. They take something and create something completely new out of it. Each person who colors in, the end results come out in different ways, and I genuinely think that a lot of these colourtok videos, the end result of their coloring are so beautiful. They have the shading, the lighting, they're amazing. That itself is art. It's crazy to me that there are people saying that, oh, you shouldn't use these markers because you're not an artist. I do agree with the whole idea of overconsumption and how TikTok does influence hobbies and how that leads to people just jumping straight into hobbies without slowly building their collection. If a person is doing colourtok, then obviously they will have a lot of stationery. Obviously they will have a lot of coloring books. I love reading. It's one of my biggest hobbies. I probably would have had more books if I didn't come to the realization that, oh, probably shouldn't buy too much, and also I don't have enough space. I feel like it's the same for many other types of creation. For example, if a crocheter has a bunch of wool, yarn, whatever it is, you wouldn't say that they're over consuming on that because they're using that item to create a new item. If they have 300 balls of yarn, they're gonna use it for something eventually. And it's just the same with so many other hobbies. Collectors, for example, if you collect Pokemon cards, they're widely expensive. K-pop cards, widely expensive, and you're just gonna have a collection of them in your room. But if it's something that someone loves, then I feel like they should just be allowed to do that. In my opinion, there is a difference between overconsumption where I think it's more rage baity. For example, if you buy a bunch of things from, I don't know, Shein just to do hauls and then you end up just tossing everything away, compared to you buying books and reading it, or compared to you buying markers and actually using them to color in your stuff. In the end, even though people may be mad that, oh, 𝐬𝐻𝐬 markers are expensive markers, they should be treated better, they are art grade level markers, the people who buy those markers, whatever happens to the markers that they buy with their own money, it's their fault, okay? If the markers end up drying out, or if, I don't know, something bad happens to them, you as a person on the internet shouldn't judge that, because in the end, it's not in your control. And honestly, why should you care about somebody else's markers? And I just feel like every single hobby that is introduced and that becomes viral, straight away people are instantly like, oh, this is a bad thing. I definitely do think that there is a side of colourtok that probably does show more of this negative aspect. A lot of commentary video tends to emphasize on the negatives rather than the positives of how hobbies are really important. There was one video that I watched where the creator kept emphasizing on the fact that they bought $300+ markers, and I felt like they said that without even researching the type of markers that they were. Obviously, higher quality stuff is gonna cost more. I do somewhat agree with the whole idea of TikTok transforming hobbies into something that is more pressuring. I do completely understand that, especially with the whole idea of feeling the need to film everything with other people, the whole general public. Obviously, not everyone is going to be in TikTok. Not everyone is going to be filming their coloring. And I just feel like, why would you feel the pressure to do the same thing if you're not on social media? I'm gonna lead on to my next point, which is booktok, because people love talking about booktok. There's just so much drama surrounding booktok. And you know what? I'm not on booktok, I'm on booktube, and booktok do overlap a little bit. Booktube also has a problem with overconsumption, buying a lot of books, and there are some creators who buy like 100+ books just in one go, full series, where I'm like, maybe you should just read the first book and see if you like the rest of the series. That I do think is wild, and not reading the books that you actually buy. That to me is a little bit sad, because you buy these books for a reason, so I hope that you read them. But when it comes to other creators who do genuinely love reading and who do read books that they buy, I think people view their shelf and are like, oh, this person is over consuming. Whereas I think that people who do hauls, where they collect books that they bought over time and then finally talk about them or open packages in that one video, they buy books that they're genuinely excited about, which they later read in videos. Or booktubers, booktokers who buy books for a specific video and then they read it. I'd rather someone buy a book and then actually read the book that they buy. And in the end, booktubers are still supporting bookstores. And the thing about just the internet in general and the idea of overconsumption is that just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean that you need to as well. Just because someone is buying 100+ books, that doesn't mean you need to as well. And that also doesn't mean that you can as well. People need to realize that these creators will obviously have the money to buy these things, especially when their channel is completely focused on it. I wanted to also talk about the pressure of booktok and the idea of having to read 100+ books. And I see this all the time in the book community. I have a video talking about it, and there's just so much discourse surrounding the idea of reading 100+ books and the idea of reading 10 books a year. And my whole issue with everything is just the feeling of superiority that everybody gets. For example, if you read 100+ books, maybe you're like, oh my god, I read 100+ books, and you've only read 10, whereas people who read low amount of books tend to think that, oh, I've read only 10 books, I took my time with it, I can actually remember what they're about. People who read 100+ books are probably lying, they're probably skimming. And the whole video that I made surrounding that is an explanation of how it is possible for someone to read that many books. That doesn't mean you have to read that many books, that doesn't mean you should. I just want to explain that you can. And the explanation is putting your time and effort to read will obviously allow you to read more. If you took out the time that you spend on your phone, on TikTok, and you use that time to read, trust me, you could get through more books than you would actually think that you could get through. And the whole idea of social media pressuring people to read more, I definitely agree that does happen. The whole idea of competition, the whole idea of meeting and reaching certain reading goal. However, and I mean this with all honesty, and I say this in a way where I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I think that is just a you problem, and that you're the one that feels the pressure and the need to keep up with this. Nobody in real life is going to ask you how many books you've read this year. Nobody in my life has ever asked me how many books I've read, and I'm a reader. I've been reading my whole life. Genuinely, people are not interested in the amount of books that I've read, or even the books that I'm reading. It's quite sad because sometimes I want to talk about it, but I doubt people are gonna ask you, how many books have you read this year? And if you aren't like happy with the amount of books that you've read, you don't need to tell someone about it. Also, if you don't do social media, I don't understand as well the pressure to read that much, because what exactly are you proving? What I'm trying to say is that there's no reason to force yourself to read that much, because nobody is telling you to read that much. Obviously, this is just the influence of social media. Social media just like tends to twist people's brains. But I just find it so sad that in every community there tends to be a lot of negative stuff. The whole idea of hobbies turning into pressure, and that hobbies don't need to be used as an aesthetic or something that you need to show on social media, I totally agree with that. I mean, even with myself, I create videos surrounding books and I love it. And I will admit that in the beginning of my channel, it's not that I had the pressure to create videos. I think the issue is that I created videos that I may not have necessarily wanted to create. For example, when I had to read books out of my comfort zone or stuff like that, I was a little bit like, oh, I don't really want to read these books, you know? But now that I've kind of changed my direction and I'm trying to read books that I actually want to read and just like talk about them and not focus on what other people are reading and not being worried if other people are gonna be interested in what I'm posting just because it's not, I guess, following the trends or it's not about super popular BookTok books. Whatever, I'm just gonna read and I'm just going to talk about it because that's what I've been wanting to do the whole entire time. What I wanted to say in this video is that I feel like commentary videos have just become more negative because they tend to be bashing other people, and I've seen this just like everywhere. It's not even about colourtok or booktok, it can be about people. They will hate on creators and just be so disgusting and rude to them, and it frustrates me because I know that they are criticizing them and trying to, I don't know if you would say educate them, but just because you're on the internet, that doesn't mean the person that you're watching is not human as well. Anyways, that's kind of what I just wanted to say in this video. I'm not a commentary person, okay? My videos gonna be mainly focused on books, but it's just sometimes I have these thoughts that I want to say. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please like, subscribe and all that jazz, and I will see you guys in another one. Bye!